What's good? What's good, everybody? Hope all of you are doing well. We want to welcome each and every one of you to another edition of Am I Okay? But the Pivot Evangelism Now edition. I'm your host for today, Pastor John Coaxum, and I'm really, truly excited to be here with you. Just to let you know a little bit about me, and then we'll bring in the panelists as well as we have this awesome discussion. We only have an hour, and we definitely want to dive in as quickly as we can to get as much out of it as possible. But again, I'm Pastor Coaxum. I am a church planting pastor at this point in the Allegheny West Conference in Columbus, Ohio. Myself, along with my associate pastor, Pastor Max Gomez, we've teamed up here for the better part of a year. Our mission has been to go after young adults that have been missing from the church, and even those who are not a part of the church, have no belief system at all. And right now, we've been able to connect with over 140 young adults in the Columbus area. If you want to know more about what we're doing, you can go to Connection Community, cbus.com, and learn a lot about our service projects and the things that we're doing now evangelistically here in Columbus, Ohio, especially during this coronavirus. So right now, I want to bring in all of our panelists right now, so that you can see their smiling faces, the experts for today. And they're going to introduce themselves one by one and tell us just kind of their name, who they are, where they are, maybe even a little bit, tiny bit about what they're doing, but we'll get more into that as the conversation goes on. So I want to call on each of you one by one and just let you do your thing real quick before we jump into some of these questions. And by the way, for those of you who are watching right now on Facebook or YouTube or wherever this is streaming, feel free to drop your questions in even now so that we can kind of get them queued up. So I want to start with Pastor Jean-Philippe. If you would just introduce yourself and talk about who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing.
Yes, I am Yrvain Jean-Philippe. I've been a pastor for 40 years, and this year is my 40th year of pastoral ministry.
All right.
And I'm Haitian. Presently, I'm pastoring. I am pastoring at Horeb Church, Northeastern Conference, with under the leadership of our president, Dr. Daniel Honore. And thank you so much for having me and that panel.
Yeah, thank you. And congratulations on 40 years of ministry. Welcome, welcome. All right, Pastor Humphreys, talk to us.
Yo, what's up, everybody? It's Pastor Austin Humphreys here. I'm currently in my 8th year of pastoral ministry. I'm pastoring the South Atlantic Conference. I pastor in Murfreesboro in Washington, North Carolina, but I actually co-pastor an online membership with Pastor Gia Scott called North Carolina Online Worship Now, if you will. We service over 600 members online who have joined and been a part of our services. And so even though we have 2 districts that came together to do ministry, we're excited about our online vision and what God is doing. But glad to be on today, John.
That's awesome, man. Glad to have you. Our next panelist, I don't know if she needs any introduction at all. She's everywhere and she's doing a lot. But Carmela Monk-Crawford, why don't you talk to us for a minute?
Doing the most. That's what they say. I don't know if that's good or not. Yes, I'm Carmela Monk-Crawford. I'm so honored to be here with this panel of distinguished gentlemen, editor of Message Magazine. And as you all are counting the years of your pastoral ministry, I've been at Message here the second time during my career, this time for 5 years before I left and came back. And when I went to law school. So 13 years working with the ministry of Message Magazine in this ever evolving platform. And I'm so glad to be here today to talk about those kinds of changes.
Awesome. So glad to have you. And thank you for all that you're doing at Message Magazine. Pastor Roger Hernandez with the ones. Talk to us. What's going on? You're muted, Doc.
Stereo and Evangelism Director for the Southern Union. I also help out as a volunteer pastor in a church plant in Atlanta with Dr. Reverend Wesley Knight. And we've done over since March, when we shut down to here to today, I've participated in 7 evangelistic meetings online. So we've discovered some things to do and not to do.
That is awesome. That is awesome. We're going to get into all of that. Thank you so much, all of you guys, for being here today. So today, our topic is really clear. We're talking about evangelism and how to pivot evangelistically. And just to maybe differentiate between some of the other editions of Am I Okay? You know, we've talked about how the church is different, how worship service is different. We're kind of getting more specific here today because we're trying to figure out, is it still possible, man, to bring people across the line? When you can't see them face to face, when you can't have a Bible study in your church or fellowship hall or sit across the table from them or preach to them and have a nice appeal and have them walk down the aisle. How do we do that in 2020 when Corona has seemingly just ravaged everywhere? It's everywhere right now, and it's stopping us from doing some of the things that we have been doing before. So I don't want to take anything for granted. I know this may seem really simplistic to you guys, but I just want to ask real quick, what is your definition of evangelism, or even your philosophy of evangelism? What is evangelism to you? Somebody define it for me. Just talk to me what you believe that it is.
For me, it's a lifetime, and it's anything that brings another human being closer to Jesus. Right. So I don't think that we need to eliminate what we traditionally have associated with evangelism, but we do need to expand it.
Yeah.
So I have a broader understanding of evangelism.
Yeah, I think for me, it's just bringing a practical Jesus into a community. I think that's a big thing for me. How can I bring a Jesus that impacts me into a community? That's a big thing for where I am pastoring locally. As Elder Hernandez says, we can't deny and take away from what has worked in the past, but we do to expand our tactics and move forward. And I think that's what we're here today.
Absolutely. Pastor Philippe?
Yes. Whether it is personal or public evangelism, we have to use it to bring people into a connection with Jesus. Evangelism must be used to bring people to be connected.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's a huge key word there, connection. That's actually the name of my church plant here. You know, we exist to connect people in God. That's what the church is for. That's what spiritual leaders are for, to provide the space for people to connect with God at this time. So I want to ask you guys this as we move forward and jump into some of these questions for today. How would you describe your approach to and practices of evangelism in 2020? And I want you guys to get real practical and real with me. Tell me what has worked for you and what has not worked for you. Because as pastors and as spiritual leaders in some capacity, man, I think in some way we all were caught off guard by COVID. We could not have predicted it, but we had to pivot evangelistically, right? We had to get innovative and change some things, some of us more than others. But tell us what you're doing and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
Okay. For me, in 2020, I just trying to implement the mission statement that we decided for the church in 2020. And our mission statement was, or still is, connected and committed to make disciples in worshiping, fellowshipping, and evangelizing. You know, as pastor has been challenged by the life of the apostolic church, and I wish always that I could reproduce this kind of life in our church. And that's why early this year we started with implementing our mission: worshiping, fellowshipping. Even though now the fellowship is not that easy, because you cannot meet with people, but even over Zoom, after worship service, we give them time to greet each another, to bring love and so on. And when somebody also is in trouble, is sick, we do our best, to call. We keep on calling them. We stay in touch with them. In case of sickness, we pray, and if there is a pot of soup to bring, we bring it. If we have to job some bags of food, we job it. And whatever we can do to address the felt needs of our people.
Yep.
Okay, so it almost appears that you haven't missed a beat, man.
Right.
Making soup deliveries and stuff.
No, it's about evangelism. Is that you need for me the very best method is the method of Jesus. We need to touch the felt needs of our people. So certainly, we cannot find them when I'm preaching, for example. When I'm launching Apple, it's difficult for me, to bring them to the altar. But because my members are connected with some of them, even though they cannot come before the altar, my members bring them to me.
So what I'm hearing in you is right. So what I'm hearing, I'm hearing in you intentionality. You're still going to get it done one way or the other, even though COVID has interrupted some of that. And we appreciate that. I mean, that seems the soup delivery caught me off guard, but I love it, man. I love it. Pastor Humphrey, talk to me.
Yeah, let me jump in for a second. Let me just make this statement for those who are watching and who may see this later. Evangelism should not be an event. It should be a part of your culture. It's common practice in your church. I don't just do evangelism when we do a meeting. It should be in the culture. And so 2 words for me in COVID that's been critical is relationships and partnerships, because we have relationships in the community and we have built and we have partnerships with organizations in the community. Even though we're not in the building physically, it has not stopped us from being able to do ministry. And I think that's critical to say, because we have relationships, and now it just kind of seems easier to get people to hit a link for Zoom instead of trying to pick everybody up on time and get them into a building for certain things. I'm finding, and this is interesting to me, that I'm getting more attendance, not just from our members, but from visitors and people in the community to jump onto our services by Facebook, by YouTube, all that kind of stuff when they are experiencing our live services. But when I mean partnerships, I'm saying that we're able to find out what's going on with the need in the community because we are involved. I know for our churches, we're involved with the Boys and Girls Club. And so we still get a great sense of what's happening in our community. So we're still able to connect, as the pastor just mentioned, still connecting in different ways. So those things are relevant. I'll also say that our online ministries have been successful because we're not only just doing it for just programming, but we're meeting the needs in areas but beyond the spiritual side of things. So for instance, we're taking care and helping with the financial side of helping. Health, we're doing more things that we're involved with. We're also partnering with other organizations, and it's so easy to do now because all we got to do is share a link. So those things have been extremely successful.
Yeah, for myself, there's a couple of things that I would like to share. Having done, this 6 or 7 series since March, and there's 2 things. One, people online are not looking for information; they're looking for meaning.
Yeah.
Right. So this download of information, where we have a worship service that is directed one way, and then it's done, and then we say, "Well, see you next week," is working less and less. People say, "Well, people are not logging in because they're tired of Zoom." Actually, they're logged in more than ever. They just don't want information that is not relevant to their lives. So that's the first one. So in my evangelism, I had to ask myself, how am I providing not just information, but meaning, right? So then the connection is engagement. We did a meeting in a church in South Carolina. We had 10 baptisms over COVID. Why? Because the church was intentional in connecting with people in the community in different ways. So I think it does work. Barna had an article today called "We Are Entering the Age of the Prodigal," and that can go 2 ways. One, you can just throw your hands in the air and say it's over. Why are we even doing this? Or say we have a great opportunity, right? So I see pastors that think one of 2 ways. Some of them think this is an interruption and it's going to go back to normal. So let's just replicate what we've been doing online until the storm passes. The other type of pastor says this is a disruption, so I need to operate in a new normal, a completely different paradigm. And that's where we're trying to find right now what is working and what's not working. So I congratulate everybody who's listening to this, because we need to figure out what's working and just say goodbye to the things that don't.
Yeah, that's good, man. Sorry about the interruption there a minute ago. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to jump in and say, first of all, the landscape, as you all know, and as you are practitioners and experts in this area, the landscape for evangelism was already a difficult playing field.
Absolutely.
Was it not? It was already a difficult, Barna, I was reading his Reviving Evangelism. And so the warning bells have been sounding for years, and message has been at that crucible where we've been in the fire for several years, where people have been trying to find out how does message fit into their portfolio of evangelism. And in my heart, I have always felt that message was a vital tool, an important tool, an evergreen tool into what needs to be done. What we have seen during COVID was that now we are not in that mode of driving, going to church, or, and I'm not saying for everybody, but for the people who believe that the church service was the end all and be all of their spiritual existence. Yeah. They're now reevaluating and saying, where is the meaning in my life as a Christian as I'm sharing my own personal evangelism? What am I doing? Is it more than just a spectator event? Is this my lifestyle, as you're saying, Pastor Humphreys? And so for me and for message, we have found that, hey, when people are asking the question, we always say with a smile, message is still here and is still available as you go into different neighborhoods and communities. I woke up this morning, the first thing I got on my phone was a text from a sister who had been asking me about her message magazines, and she had been ordering 20 of them. She said, I wanted to let you know, I got 20 my magazines today, and I passed them out to every house in the neighborhood. I came back home. I had 7 requests for prayer and 9 requests for Bible studies. And so we at Message have been straddling the old school and the new school for years. And so what we see is this woman who is doing this. And at the same time, what we are trying to do and offer is a shift in the way we, or I should say, the platform is expanding so that we can increase our reach. So we want to make sure that we have everything available digitally, and the things that we have available digitally online through our podcast and our articles, both in the magazine and online, we should say, are what we call, and what our dear friend Claudia Allen, who is our online content manager, calls hyper relevant. And so we no longer are sitting back trying to give people what we believe and only we believe they want. The idea is to talk about the things that people want to talk about. Imagine that. And discuss and be a part. And let's through the discussion, we're building community, and we are identifying some areas in which we do have commonality. And through those conversations, we're able to build more relationships, more connections. I will say this as I wind this part up, is that we have a friend of ours, like Pastor Jean-Philippe, who was continuing to do, he was asking people in the church, please pass out these Bible studies. So he was using them like they were tracts. Give them to your friend and your family. COVID hits, and though they had people who were ready for baptism, they couldn't do it because of COVID. But I went to a river near his church about a month ago, and he baptized 4 individuals in the river. And it was an amazing event. People came together, they had on masks, they had, everybody was socially distanced, but that connection, the thing that it brought to mind was the fact that the thing still works. We can go old school and new school and still see the Lord bless.
I want to just kind of piggyback on what you just said, Ms. Crawford, in terms of how you are being relevant and you're expanding. And I think it's very critical. We have any leaders or pastors or or anyone else who is a part of a church, if you are just sitting, waiting around for things to get back to normal, you are doing a disservice to yourself and your church community. This should be the time, as Elder Roger just mentioned, that we have to find a way to grow and expand, find new ways to, when we get back into the building, you should have a plan for 2 plans: in-person ministry and online presence evangelism. If you just sitting waiting on stuff to get back to normal, big choirs, waiting for a big event to bring a singer in, you are mistaken. We've got to make a change. So thank you, Sister Crawford, for saying that, because I do think it's important that we have available resources. And Message Magazine has been around for a while, and I appreciate the fact that you're saying, look, we recognize that we have to expand and do some things to really grow our reach.
Let me add something.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me just continue on one quick thing that Roger Hernandez said just a minute ago that I want to stay with for just 1 second. You said something about pastors continuing to do the same thing they've always done until the storm passes. And I kind of want each of you, I guess, to kind of talk to the pastors, maybe not each of you, but 1 or 2 of you to talk to this, because that's a question that came my way when we decided to do this. Am I okay? Somebody was just like, why are pastors trying to duplicate just the same services that they've always done and trying to put it online? And then I saw a post the other day, something I've heard, maybe all of you have heard before as well, which said that this is the way we've always done it, is the last dying words of a dying church, right?
Yeah.
What do you say to those pastors, those leaders who are not willing at all? Just say, hold on, we're just going to do this. We're going to just put up the same services we've had before. And when COVID is over, then we'll come back and do real and relevant ministry.
Well, I think that when we use irrelevant methods, people don't think that we're irrelevant. They think that God is irrelevant, right? So it would behoove us to say, hey, wait a minute, what's not working here? We found out, for example, I'm not preaching 50-minute sermons. I preach a 20-minute message on the subject of failure, on the subject of health, on the subject of pain, 20 minutes. And then we bring an expert and we answer questions from people online for 25 minutes.
Goodness.
So the interaction is 25 and the message is 20. If I'm doing a regular evangelistic service, there are preliminaries. Nobody logs on to listen to your preliminaries, bro. Nobody does that, right?
Say it again, Roger. Say it again.
So we just have a song. We have one song, and then I speak, and then we interact with people. So that's one way that we've shifted, right? The proclamation of the word is still there, but if you can't say what you need to say in 20 minutes, you probably haven't researched it enough. And then people, as they are talking and asking questions, we had somebody, I talked about health, right? And had somebody who's lost 150 pounds. And she's talking about how the impact they made on her life and how and people were really connected to that because, people are talking about the pandemic 15 and how they're going from the bed to the snack. This is relevant to them right now. So I think that there is, sometimes after a hurricane, things don't go back. The landscape has changed. There's mountains where there didn't used to be, and there's valleys and there's water and you have to adjust and not just say, okay, I'm just going to wait it out. I'm going to hunker down in this bunker and then come back to a whole different world and then try to figure out then what to do while we have prodigals just really disconnecting from the church.
In order for the church to look for ways to deliver its message, the church must be convinced about the relevance of the message. If you don't have nothing to offer, you will never find ways to offer it. You have nothing to give. You can only find ways to deliver something that you want to deliver. And I think that it's about time for us to work with our churches, for them to be convinced about the message, the very last message that we have for this dying world. It's about time for each member to be convinced that we have a message for this dying world. We have to bring hope, comfort to them. And as soon as we have this as a burden on our hearts, we'll find ways. We'll seek for ways to deliver it. We'll find ways.
I was going to say that during this time, we are freed from some things that have been, it's like, tied to, I guess, some practices and some office, I should say.
That's good.
What am I trying to say? The bureaucracy, right? What is beautiful for message, and this is truly going to be a pivotal shift for us in all these years in transparency. What has become who we are has been the painful bureaucracy of who we are, rather than the ministry of sharing, which I believe people want to do. I'm not a minister. I am what they call a lay person, but still a part of the priesthood of all believers, correct? And so I have my own ministry, but this ministry for message it's not about getting a goal as much as being free to make those connections and increase that reach. During this time, when you don't have to get up and actually put on pants, you can make a phone call. You can reach out to people and you can do some different things. This is a freeing opportunity. And I believe with message, we are seeing this. This is a time so that now we can connect with members and say, during your commute time that you would have had, is there somebody that you can call? Is there somebody that you can reach out to? Can you take a pot of soup to somebody during this time? You understand what I'm saying? So we are freed from some of the old ways. And I think the opportunities are endless. But once our pastors and members realize, hey, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. What can I do? How can I sit down with somebody else and figure out what can I do? Let's let the creative juices flow under the unction and the impress of the Holy Spirit, and let's see what happens now.
So you know what's so funny is that when I was in school, they were telling us, the best time to do any kind of change in your church is during evangelism, right? When you first get there, don't try to change the church because everybody's going to be mad at you. But I totally agree and hear what you're saying right now. I think the majority of all of us should see this as more of an opportunity than a burden. Right now, you can almost literally try everything. And I think you said bureaucracy. I'll say, some of the traditions, we can put to the side, some of the things that we've been held on to for a long time. We can try as many new things as we want to. Those dreams and ideas we as pastors and spiritual leaders have had, we can do that. Pastor Humphrey, were you about to say something?
No, I was just going to echo what everybody was saying. I think, Pastor Philippe, thank you for your comments earlier, because member support is key. I want to make it clear, we shouldn't be going back and doing the same thing, intro worship, all these different preliminaries. We should be going in there trying to figure out, okay, we're in the building, how can we bless our community? How can we get them tied into what's taking place online? Listen, we have somebody we're doing Bible studies with from Denver that want to join our churches. I have two small churches in the middle. I got two small churches. So, but they look at our online presence and they see what's going on. They're like, yo, we want to be a part of this. And so we're literally having to change culture. So I'm just going to say, you are delusional if you think that it's just going to be all good. You can go back into the building and do the same exact thing. But what Pastor Philippe is saying, and he's correct, members got to be aware of the time and how the message applies to our time today.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, as the only person who is, a member in the pew on this channel right now, I think this is so key right now, is that this is a time when everybody exercises their gift.
Right.
All right. And so once again, not only are we free from the bureaucracy, I believe this is a time when we can be looking around and developing a team and a network My Lord, this is, for me, this is the thing that makes my blood percolate, because this is now when I can sit around the table and I can say, Pastor Humphreys, you got the east side. Pastor Coaxum, you got the west side. Pastor Roger, you're going to come in with the team. They're going to do so-and-so. Pastor Jean-Philippe, you all got the this and that. And this is what I'm going to throw into the pot. This is the kind of thing that people want to be a part of.
Absolutely.
I don't want to sit back anymore. Even, if we were getting restless sitting in the church, sitting back in the pew, how much more are members restless sitting on my sofa watching on Zoom? I want to get involved, and I want to do it now.
Yeah.
So let's go there. Let's go there and let's talk about that, because I think that is key. I've heard all of you mention each member at some point. Each person has to be involved and share part of the load. So one thing that, let's talk about the win of evangelism. All right. And I'm going to try to connect these dots for you real quick. We always talk about the win is baptism. The win is this, that, and the third, which is always good. Of course, Christ asks us to do that, but he also asks us to make disciples, right? Make disciples. And I was at actually a church planning conference not long ago where he said, man, we even have to shift from that. And instead of just making disciples, we have to make disciple makers, people who can get people across the line, people who can formulate relationships with other people. So talk to me about discipleship. How do we get our members, man, to have the same level of desire for evangelism that we have right now? How do we get them involved, or maybe how you're doing that in your context?
I'll start with that one. I think that it's interesting that we are now redeeming what we were demonizing 6 months ago, right? People preaching on like Facebook is of the devil, and now you're watching the worship service on it. I give you a clear example of a practical church scenario. The pastor is not a digital native. A lot of times pastors don't want to do much, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how to. Right. So they just they fall back to like preaching over the telephone. And I'm just, because I'm familiar with conference calls, that's what I'm going to do. But this pastor had the humility to engage his young adults in this online service and say, I mentioned to him algorithms. He had no idea what that word meant. He repeated it though, like he knew what it meant. And people were like, yeah, I know what that means. It was like, can you help me with it? Well, the algorithms from Facebook and YouTube, depending on engagement. So he unleashed the young adults in his church, and they took over the evangelistic series. They welcome, they were the social media managers. They had the advertising done. And at the end of the week, out of the 10, 6 of the people that crossed the line were young adults, one from another state, right? But it was because discipleship happens when pastors understand that your job is not to control your congregation, but to empower them.
Okay.
Right? And there's a lot of creativity and innovation sitting in those pews that we're afraid to unleash because it doesn't look like what we used to. And I have to be comfortable enough in my calling to say, I'm not really familiar with all this stuff, but I have some people who are. Let me unleash them. And that's what discipleship is. At its core is allowing people to flourish in whatever gifts God has given them. And we have all these digital natives that are just sitting back and saying, all right, so now you get it, how important this is.
Right.
So that would be my take on it from a particular specific illustration of a church.
What I would add is, as we talk about empower the members, I think that there is something that is missing in our ways of doing evangelism. For me, evangelism should be the loving response of the member to what Christ has done for him or for her. And it seems to me that as pastor, we have to try to ignite the flame in the soul of our members. We have to bring them to that point where they will say, what shall I render to the Lord for all his benefits toward me? And when your member is ready to make that statement, he is also ready to be consecrated to the Lord for this task. And when he is ready for consecration, he will receive the unction, the power of the Holy Spirit. And now, under the power of the Holy Spirit, he will be ready to act. Talking about act, training, teaching, preaching, giving Bible studies.
Yeah.
All will come after. But first of all, my colleagues, my pastors, we have to start with the ignition. Our people are dying because they seem to forget what God has done for them. This is my personal testimony. This is my testimony. In Haiti, I was sick. I was in the hospital in 1994. And while I was in the hospital, and this Sabbath morning, when I look at the ivy coming in my vein, I told Jesus, I want to do something for you. Please let this ivy be a drop of your blood in my vein, in my blood. And I told him, Jesus, after this, please, I want to preach a crusade for you. I want to baptize 700 people. You know, God took my word. I left the hospital, and the very same week, I received a call to preach a crusade. And it was at the Seventh-day Adventist University in Haiti. This is not a place where we preach crusade, but my God set it up for me. And I preached that crusade. About 3 weeks, about 400 people were baptized.
Wow.
It starts from the flame, from our love. We must say, how shall I render?
Yes.
Did God do something for me recently, this year, in my 40th year? I wanted yes.
Sorry, can I jump in real quick? Because you made a point I don't want to overlook, John. You mentioned training a while back, and thank you, Pastor Philippe. I think it's important. I'll be quick because I know we're pressed for time. Friendship evangelism is major right now. Friendship evangelism. 2 things. I want to speak to the pastors that got districts. You got smaller churches. Get your members involved on the call. They can FaceTime. They can connect. This is key right here, though. Train people. Do actual training. Bring people in. Talk about, Elder, talk about being comfortable in your gift and knowing I'm not afraid to bring somebody in who is better in a certain area in customer service. That may have nothing to do with ministry per se, but just in terms of how we can connect with people online, how we can get involved when we get back to be able to train your people in different areas. Get the training yourself as well. But friendship evangelism is key, because if I can get you to send a link to 10 people through text, if I can get you to call and get people there, I'm gonna get people into the building virtually, at least for right now. But as he said, it's the ignition. But after the ignition, we've got to train people the how-to steps to be relevant in evangelism.
I think that's really good, man. I just want to say this. I'm sorry. Let me say this real quick, Doc. Real quick. I just want to say that is key. Absolutely, man. And I know of a pastor, he's a church planner, who actually takes his team, his staff, to a restaurant because the customer service is just so good. He takes them there. He said, just watch the waiters. I want you to watch how the manager talks to people. I want you to watch this, so that when we finally get back into the church, I want you to implement all of these things that you have seen. We all know how great Chick-fil-A is. Hallelujah for Chick-fil-A, man. I mean, this is some real Holy Ghost-filled compassion that this fast food chain has. It is.
And this year, in my 40th year, I wanted to do something. Lord, this is 40 years. You have been good for me. Lord, let me do something for you. I call a friend of mine, Pastor Samuel G. in Massachusetts. And I told him, you know, my friend, this is my 40th year in ministry. I want to do something for the Lord. And he helped me out. We set up a crusade in July, the past July, with some other pastors together. We have Zoom, we have YouTube, and presently about 80% are already baptized. It's
God,
you know, our life, my people, my pastors, my friends. It is crucial. Our hearts must be touched by His love. In fact, that this is what Jesus wanted from Peter. Peter, after his denial, what Jesus wanted to know about Peter: do you love me?
Right, Pastor Philippe, let me jump in. I think you're right on the money there. Basically, what you're saying is that our members must have the love of Christ in them, and out of their own testimony, out of their own experience with God, man, they have to find ways to evangelize people that are around them, maybe even in their own homes. I want to get to a question that's in the chat right now. I think it's important. We are short on time, but Ainsworth Joseph is asking, COVID-19 has broken up our event mode of evangelism. I think, Austin, you said that at the top. How can we maintain evangelism as a way of life rather than an event? So most of our evangelism efforts, before COVID were, 3-week crusades, tent crusades. We had, revelation seminars, health seminars, all these different things. We can't do it the way we've done it before. You guys have said it needs to be a way of life. How do we practically do that? What wisdom can you give the pastors out there?
I think step number one is that you have to do evangelism yourself. Right? Because you can't expect people to do something that you don't live out. And number two, I would ask, so what process of accountability do we have in our churches? Right? If we believe that the first impulse of a converted person is to share the gospel, and people are not sharing the gospel, then you have to ask yourself, so what kind of gospel I'm preaching that is so foreign to people that they believe they can hoard it and not share with anybody else? I need to check my preaching. I need to change. I need to check my topics. I need to check my gospel drenched messages that or lack thereof. So I think people learn with stories. So I incorporate in my messages. Hey, the other day, I was cutting my hair, and I was talking to the person who was cutting my hair, and I was just sharing with them, and they were talking to me about my next door neighbor was having this conversation, and I incorporate in all my messages specific examples of how I'm sharing my faith, me, Roger Hernandez, with the people in my community. Because when you say, hey, share your faith, everybody's going to say amen. Nobody's going to disagree. Nobody's going to say, no, I'm not. But how? Yeah, the people in the pews, when they're listening, they're saying, yes, but how? Show me how. What? Like, we need to come closer to Jesus. We need to be united. What does that even mean? Well, what is it like in practicality? We need to share our faith. We need to be outspoken for Jesus. What is you can't be ashamed of the gospel. What does that mean? In this, and I think one specific thing that we can do is 85% of millennials said that social justice was very important to them. So when we mute ourselves in that aspect, we mute ourselves to a whole generation that is looking for some connection, because they're being led to believe that you cannot have Jesus and a social conscience. You need to gonna have to give up one or the other, right? You can just follow Jesus, not care about what happens in the world, or if you really care, you can't be really a Christian because that's politics. Political. So how do we merge? That resonates a lot with this generation about a church that really cares about social justice.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. And I think it's becoming glaringly obvious the things we don't talk about now, like in COVID-19. Before, it may not have been glaringly obvious. Now it's definitely, because now you have a stream that's on Facebook Live, and everybody above you is posting about social justice and George Floyd, and everybody beneath you, and then you're preaching something foreign that has nothing to do
with it. Yeah,
happening in the world today. So that definitely is a problem.
Yeah, kid, I'm so thankful to Pastor Joseph for that question, because at Message, we do have everything. You know, I just moved into my community. I live in Columbia, Maryland now, and I moved into a community where I don't know anybody, and the neighbors immediately surrounding me were all white. They had a beautiful, like a welcome thing where we are outside, you know, Friday afternoon. They had wine and cheese. You know, we had to go through the whole thing, whatever. But, you know, we went around, we visited, you know, one of those round the world kind of thing, visiting and everything. Afterwards, I went back and I gave everybody a copy of Message Magazine, our health issue, with the big fist on the thing, talking about green power and social justice and the earth. You know what I mean? I gave that to everybody. And people who do not look like me, or who there would be an assumption that they would not be interested in what I had to offer. They came back, they says, I read this, I appreciate this. One lady said, I don't know how she found it. She said, so you're a Seventh-day Adventist. Are there Seventh-day Adventist churches around here? Yes, there are. She says, have you all always been plant-based? Yes, people want to talk about it. So all I'm saying in answer to that question is, if your lifestyle, if you want your life to be one that you are ready to say something and ready to share, I've got some things for you to share from the magazine, so that you can come back on a every other month basis where you have that relationship. You're like, hey, you got it? Yeah, I got it. How's it going? Yeah, it's fine. To tracks from that one time thing where you see people, hey, I got something for you, a little something. You know, you have to be cool about it. You know what I'm saying? It's not the old school, hey, this is something that's going to change your life. We have the message. We are the remnant people. We got the best music. We got the this. It's just like, hey, bro, what's up? Here you go. I got something for you. You know what I mean? And you share that. And so we do have those things. And I want people to remember, they can go to messagemagazine.com, where you can find those kinds of resources if you want to do it.
I got to say this real quick, John. Notice what she just said in her story that she talked about. She just said that it was an event outside where she passing stuff out, wine and cheese, whatever else, they were greeting her, whatever. That wasn't some spiritual event. That was just a get together, and she was able to do ministry. We've got to find ways to just get into spaces where everybody is in and just have a relevant message to give. Right now, we're doing a Biggest Loser challenge online for our people, with a men's and a women's section. We're giving away money for the winner, all that kind of stuff. We have non-Adventists being a part. We got Adventist folk who are part of different denominations. And what it is all we're doing is we're just bringing people together to just for community and relationship. I haven't brought up what church do you go to or what faith do you believe in, but what we're doing is we're connecting, as she's just talking about. She was able to connect, and she was able to say, you know what, I've got this message, and there's some stuff in here. It's not just about what church I go to, but there's some plant-based stuff. Everybody right now in 2021 be vegan, plant-based. They want to make burgers out of plants now. We've had this message for a long time. What I'm saying is, pastors, don't miss the relevancy of what she just said. She decided to do relevant ministry out of a regular event. That's pretty cool. You don't have to put up a tent and a sign and have big stuff and have an artist. No, just get into the spaces where they are, and don't be uncomfortable if they're serving like wine or they're serving meat outside of whatever you eat. Go up in that space. I gotta say this real quick. We have to not be afraid to step out of our comfort zone.
That's right.
If you in your comfort zone, you ain't gonna grow. All right, so you grow when you step out, and so that's critical. But thank you so much, Sister Crawford, for saying that, because we have to have that mindset. And no matter what space I'm in, there's an opportunity for somebody to be blessed.
Yeah, and let me add this too. I think it's in Luke 15, I think 1 and 2, man. The Bible says that the only insult that the Pharisees and scribes had against Jesus is that he welcomed sinners and eats with them. Like, that's it. And we've kind of taken that from my church plant. That's kind of like our motto. We welcome sinners and eat with them. Myself and my associate pastor, and I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but at this point, that's beyond me. We have sat across a table with someone who is drinking, people who are smoking, people. I mean, this type of avarice that we have against people who do things differently than us, we can never reach them if we never sit across the table from them, right? We can never befriend them. We can never get close to them. And I think COVID is showing us that we can no longer have this perception of people. And as you said, Austin, perfectly, we must not step, man. We've got to leap out of our comfort zone to meet people where they are and to help them, to bring them across the line. Yeah.
It's a bubble that we're in, man, that we've really got to jump out of. And I had to get out of it myself. The Boys and Girls Club gave me a bucket of food to take to people in need. And they told me it was cheese and ham sandwiches. And my Adventist mindset is like, should I take these ham pieces out of here? What is wrong? I had to rebuke myself. There is somebody who is hungry that just wants something to eat. And listen, I've got to meet the need and build the relationship first. You know, the relationship can eventually grow, but I'm not just doing it to dip you into the pool. I'm doing it for relationships. So like you said, John, I love that. Let's leap out and up to that comfort zone.
Yeah, and let me say this one last thing, and then we'll move on to just some practical stuff for the time we have left. Man, I think young adults, they love this new arena that we're moving into right now, right? My young adults, at least, man, they were tired of just sitting in church. For them, looking for significance. They're looking for meaning, and coming and sitting in a pew and listening to a phenomenal speaker who speaks well and even speaks to their issues. At times, it doesn't get them involved, right? And so, man, we've prioritized service. You know, we've gone out and made sandwiches. We've made meat sandwiches, as you said, Austin. You know, we've done a whole bunch of stuff. We've literally given away like $20,000 worth of stuff, air fryers and microwaves, just give it away to the community. And the young adults, man, they will show up for that more than they will for a traditional, ordinary worship service. And as a pastor, I ain't mad at that. I got to be honest. I ain't mad. I think that if this is an entering wedge, I'll take it, and I'm grateful for it. All right. So let's go to some practical stuff with the time we have left. I know time's a little short, but I want to give the pastors and the spiritual leaders, those that are listening, even the lay members right now that are listening, man, what practical things can they do right now? Just some tips, some tricks, something that you guys are doing to help them during this time. Austin, you mentioned The Biggest Loser. I think that's awesome, dude. I'm going to check that out myself. What are you guys doing that's innovative right now that they could maybe take some advice from and implement where they are?
Well, I just think for me, it's certain hobbies that people do every single day. How can we start small groups? The Biggest Loser came out of a need where people just wanted to be more healthy. So we're finding some practical ways that people can be a part of, and we have positive incentives. And when I say positive incentives, you know, for The Biggest Loser, I don't want to be stoned for saying this. I'm not going to give you a book for winning. Let's just come on. I'm going to give you something that can bless you. Okay, why are we giving away CDs and expect the drones to sign up for stuff? What is wrong with us? So I'm telling you, do some practical things that people want to do. That's critical. Stop answering questions that nobody's asking. Just stop doing that. Find out what the needs is. Pull your people first, and then make sure that you get some stuff out into your community, be involved, and I promise you that you'll have some relevant things that are going to be effective.
One thing that I did myself, you know, I've had a YouTube channel for 8 years, and it's grown in 8 years to 100 people, because that's what happens when you post one video a year. and then I said, let's see what I can do. I read somebody tweeted that you should do one thing a year that is just completely out of your normal way of doing things. So I said, I'm going to try this YouTube thing, put some thought into it. I'm not a digital native. I have children who are, but I just started just posting stuff and it's amazing the connection that you have a specific generation though, how they respond and how people in different platforms respond. So I'm not an expert in online broadcasting, but I decided to become familiarized with the terrain I'm trying to evangelize. In Acts 17, Paul goes to the center of the town, right, where everybody is at. So where is everybody at right now? They are online. So if I'm a pastor, I need to familiarize myself where people are at.
Sure.
Right? So it's cumbersome. Half the time I don't know what I'm doing, but I fought this little demon in my mind that tells me, don't start until you're perfect. And I said to myself, I'm going to start even if I'm not perfect, and I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to learn on the way. And it's just it's amazing what happens, and people start coming out of the woodwork to help you with videos and give you suggestions. But it never happens. People say, well, I want to find my purpose, like it's hidden somewhere, like in a pirate, that you have to find it. Your purpose, the way you find your purpose is to try to find out what is not your purpose, and the way you find out what is not your purpose is to try different things. So try different things. Well, that didn't work. Okay, that didn't work. Hey, this worked. Let's try that again and let's improve it. But if we just sit back and just, hunker down, that's not working. Whatever it is, just do something. Try something.
Okay.
Yeah, I hear the Lord saying through you, man, have courage. Have courage.
Have courage, man.
Go out there, do it. If you fall, so what? It don't matter. Like, this is the time to do it. Like, fall now. Like make a mistake now and then
fall
get better.
now. That's a word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real quick.
Can I talk? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I didn't know who you said, Pastor Coaxum. I'm going to share with you a list right now because Pastor Humphreys mentioned The Biggest Loser. And I just want to say, message again, we are online. We've got a series of podcasts. You can wake up in the morning and ask message to play your daily devotional. You can hit the button to share with other people. There's lots of things that we're doing online. I thought it was interesting when you're talking about practical things. The same research, David Kinnaman from Barna says the same thing. When you talk about trying something, I thought it was so funny because he said, here's a list of things that non-Christians give as something that they can do that they say they do as part of practicing their faith. You want to hear the list of what these people who are non-Christians do? Really funny to me. Cycling, fishing, gardening, sex, marijuana, volleyball, prayer, being kind and decent, being good and charitable, Bible reading, bird watching, charity, walking outdoors, reading and discussing spiritual books, hospice and volunteering. So I'm not saying that we should be passing out marijuana. I'm not doing that. But I definitely think that we can talk about how people are using it. I'm not saying that we should offer an event in which there is free sex, right? But we can definitely talk about how to grow your relationships intimately in the sight of God and feel more satisfied. Can't you do that? This is where people are, and these are things, areas that people are interested in, and they feel after being out there fishing that they somehow grew closer to God. We can talk about the beauty of today is while people are more secular, they are also open to having a discussion about God because it's the marketplace of ideas. And so we don't have to feel embarrassed. We can insert the fact that I'm a child of God and he's done this for me. And come with me. I'd like to, let's have a bite to eat. I can tell you about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, it is a real challenge, and my community, for example, the Haitian community, it's challenging, but we need to find ways for us to get our young people involved. We need to find ways. For example, I remember during our crusade, myself, I don't know well technology. I'm not good at it. But my young men, I have two of them that I want to thank. Junior Domeus Mackenzie and Andrew. They came and they built my platform.
Yeah.
They built my platform over the sea of COVID. Just for me to stream out the gospel.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can use our young people. We can make them companions, co-workers. As a matter of fact, I use also one of them to review my messages. I preach Sunday night and Monday evening. The young people come and review the message of last night. They fell involved. I know that there is a lot to do. There is a lot more to do. But we're not too far because we know the necessity to get them involved. And we are working on that.
Thank you, Pastor Philippe. Thank you. That was good. That was good. I'll say for me, I'll jump in here in the last part of it, being practical. I'm not going to lie. There was a part of me that didn't have a lot of courage, and something that I do that I'll admit now, I play Xbox. I play video games, and I love it. I really like video games. Right. And I've always had this idea to start some kind of ministry with young adults, over video games, man. I don't know how we would do it and how it would work. And all of a sudden, one of the young guys in our young adult group found out that I play Xbox, play the same game he does. And lo and behold, man, when we finally get on this thing, he has his friends on there, and his friends, they're cussing and talking about stuff. Okay, whatever. And then out of nowhere, he's just like, yo, guys, this is my pastor. And they're still being themselves with me. And it's just awesome. It's awesome to be human with other human beings, right? It's awesome to be cool with them, right? And just enjoy the space that they're in, to open up a door, for them to talk to you or for you to talk to them. And I think it's just awesome. I never thought in a million years I'd be on, with people and just playing video games, having a good time. And from time to time, talking about church, talking about God, talking about the Bible. And I just find that awesome. So I think that's a pivotal point to kind of end with today. And somebody mentioned it in the chat. Try something. Do something while COVID is going on. Pastor Philippe said he got his young people involved. They built a platform for him. Austin is doing stuff right now. We know Pastor Hernandez is doing a lot. We see him all the time. And thank God for Message Magazine that is giving us the tips and stuff that you can go and find for yourself right now. I just feel like we're leaving without something being said. So I want to give you guys 10 seconds or less, man, just to say one thing that you want to say to the pastors right now about evangelism. Maybe something was left off of the table, something that you want to say to each and every one of them. 10 seconds or less, guys. Don't go overboard. Try your best. So Pastor Philippe, you go first.
Yes, the same Savior that died for us, that shed his blood for us, the same Savior that still loves us, is coming back. He's coming back. And we need to be ready to welcome him. And I don't want to welcome him without somebody with me. Let us put our church members to work. Put them to work. Ignite the flame in their hearts and bring them together with us.
Love it. Austin.
Yo, just try something. That's all I got. Just do it, man. Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. I love it. Roger Hernandez.
I'm just a phone call away. If anybody wants to ask questions, I'm available. I just want to help as many people as I can. As people have helped me, I just want to pass on the information.
Absolutely. Carmela Monk-Crawford.
Well, I tell you, we've been going through a lot of this with Message for a while, and I've been praying and praying for a long time. And I borrow from W.E.B. Du Bois's afterthought in his book, The Souls of Black Folk, where he says, hear my cry, O God, the reader, vouchsafe that this book fall not stillborn into the world wilderness. I pray and I cry out to God, God, don't let our efforts fall stillborn into this sphere. We want to have an influence. We want to have an impact. I believe God will give us the answers.
Absolutely. I love it. So check this out, guys. We've had a good time. Hopefully some of the people who are listening, they'll want to get in contact with you. I think we can put it on the PELC Facebook page maybe, and get your information so that everybody can contact you and just kind of see what you're doing so that they can get ideas. For those of you watching, the next Am I OK, I believe happens October 20th. October 20th. This month is the next Am I OK? So please mark your calendars. Be there for the dialogue. And in the meantime, while we're still in this Corona crisis, we want to ask all of you, definitely be safe and do what you can to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. PELC is happening December 6th through 9th. December 6th through 9th of this year, entitled Selah, Strength for the Struggle. I don't know about you, but I definitely need some strength right now. And so I'm going to ask that all of you go and sign up and just get prepared to be there for what PELC has to offer. All right. Love you guys. Be safe and God bless.